Hello children, this is your teacher McEnroe, and I believe that you all are fine there at home. Okay, so what do we have today? It is just the continuation of the lesson named The Happy Prince, which I taught last time. Okay, so we are going to continue with that. Let me just ask you that how many of you have remembered that what I have taught you in the last class? Fine, no problem. Let me just do the recap. So it was about the repeat. So it was about the Happy Prince and the statue which was actually erected in that city. Okay, and once that prince was a happy prince when he was alive, but when he died, he was so sad to see everything which was happening in his city. So here there is one little swallow, a bird, okay, which was flying to Egypt to join with its friend. But when it decided to take rest, it stopped to that particular city. The swallow was thinking that it is going to enjoy the stay the night there, as the statue was completely covered with sapphires, gems and those rubies, and of course it was completely decorated with those ornaments. The swallow was thinking that it is going to enjoy. And then when it was about to leave the place or the statue, some droplets of water actually fell on the swallow, and it was surprised that from where this could be happening, as the cloud was clear and there was no sign of rain that could be falling at that moment. But when the swallow looked up, to its surprise, it was actually not the water which was falling on the swallow, but the tears of the prince, the happy prince. So let's continue today with the second part of this lesson. So as I told you, as soon as the bird looked up, he saw that the eyes of the happy prince statue were filled with tears. These drops of water were the tear drops falling off the statue's golden cheeks. Cheeks mean the face. Okay? When swallow looked at happy prince's face, it was looking beautiful in the moonlight. Of course, the tears, when they were falling from the eyes of the statue, it was appearing that some diamonds are falling or something like that because of the moonlight. The little bird's heart was filled with pity for the weeping statue. Here, this statement is talking about the feeling of the swallow. The swallow was feeling pity on seeing the statue's tears falling from the eyes of the prince. The statue replied that it was the happy prince. Okay, so let's proceed. The bird asked the statue, "Why are you weeping?" Asked the swallow. "You have quite drenched me." Drench, the meaning of that is there on your screen. Just have a look at that. The meaning of that is swallow was completely drenched or soaked with water because of the prince or the statue's tears which were falling on the swallow. So that's why it said, it mentioned, it stated this statement by saying that you have completely soaked me. Now I'm asking you, why are you crying? Why are you weeping? So this was the question that the swallow raised to the statue. Okay? To its reply, what the statue had told, or what the statue must have stated to the swallow, it was this: I am the happy prince. Okay. And the moment when the prince was talking about himself that he is the happy prince, then the swallow was asking, if you are the happy prince, then why you are crying? Okay. We'll just see whenever we are learning from the next statement. The swallow thought that the statue was of the happy prince. Then why it was crying? The bird asked the statue as well that why it was crying. It added that it had soaked it with the tears of the prince. Yep, that's what I told you, right? The bird was completely wet because of the tears of the prince. Let's just move on. When I was alive, these are the statement of the prince. Okay, it's there in your book. I believe that you've already brought your book along. In the sense, I mean, like you must have placed it right in front of you so that whatever I am teaching you right now, what I'm narrating to you, you will be having a clear picture of what I'm teaching you here. Okay. So if you have not brought your book so far, please have it placed right in front of you. The book, the supplementary reader, all right, of class 9th. The supplementary reader of class 9th, and the name of the book is, what is the name of the book? The Moments. Moments. Okay. When I was alive and had a human heart, answered the statue, I did not know what tears were, for I lived in the palace where sorrow is not allowed to enter. These are the statements of the prince. He is saying to the swallow, right now he is a statue, okay, he's not an alive person. Okay. So here he is talking to the bird, the swallow, which the bird had stopped for a moment to take rest while it was flying to Egypt. Are you getting the picture? Did I make it clear? I think that I have made it clear so far. Okay, fine. So here the prince is talking to the swallow, the little bird, and what the prince is telling the swallow, that when the prince was alive, he was a very happy person. He never went out. It was very rare for him to go out. He used to stay in a palace, okay, where sorrow was not allowed to enter. What is the meaning of sorrow? Sadness, unhappiness. Okay, these are the synonyms of sorrow, where the sadness or unhappiness were not allowed to enter his palace. My courtiers called me the happy prince, and happy indeed I was. See, I am reading out actually the paragraph from your book. All right. So here the prince is telling that because of his nature, he was considered as the happy prince by his courtiers. Who are these courtiers? People at a royal court, the people who were there along with him in the court. Those people are called courtiers. Okay. So because of the nature of the prince, he was called or considered as the happy prince by his courtiers. So I lived and so I died. This is the statement of the prince. Have a look at your book, it's there. So I lived and so I died. This is the statement of the prince. And now that I am dead, they have set me up here so high that I can see the ugliness and all the misery of my city. And though my heart is made of lead, yet I cannot choose but weep. Wow. What is the wow factor in that one? Let me just tell you. It's the rhyming words over there with the word called lead and wept. Okay. What is the wow factor over here is actually the rhyming words over there, the lead and the wept. Okay. It's there in the It's there in your book. All right. So let me repeat that. So I lived and so I died. That means that when he was leaving, he was having fun, a lot of fun, and just because of that he was called as the happy prince. And when he left the world, in the sense when he died, they set him up on a higher place as a statue right now. He is the statue right now, isn't it? The happy prince is the statue. He has been made as a statue and has been erected on a pedestal. Right. So here he is telling to the swallow about himself, that why he is feeling sad right now, because he is able to see the ugliness of a city. Ugliness, sadness, unhappiness and everything, misery even. His complete city was the happy city as well. Why the city was happy? Because the prince himself was so happy, so there was no place for any unhappiness entering into their city. So here the prince is saying that why he is feeling sad, because he is able to see the entire city and the sadness of the city. As once when he was alive, he was very happy. Of course he was happy, and just because of his happiness, the entire city was also happy. Okay? Now the prince is not there anymore. He has been erected as a statue over there, and now his entire city is gone. I mean, there are people who are unhappy, who are sad, and the statue, I mean the prince could see everything, even the misery of his city. That statue was crying, and through my heart is made of lead, yet I cannot choose but weep. His heart is made of lead. Okay? Just because of that, he is not able to move around, he is not able to breathe at all. He could be just standing over there and watching everything happening. And that's why he just can't do anything but cry or weep. So that's what was happening with the prince. So that's why he was actually weeping and crying. So let's move on to the next one. Yeah, the explanation. Okay. The happy prince narrated his story to the swallow. The happy prince said that when he was alive and he had a human heart, when he was alive, he had a human heart. Human heart means that heart which beats is alive, right? All of us are having that, of course. At that time, he was not aware what tears were and what sorrow was, as he lived in a palace where there was happiness all around. All the people who used to work in his court used to call him the happy prince, because he used to be happy all the time and he had not seen sorrow at all. And he said that he lived happily and died in happiness only. That was his statement also in the end, you know, that he lived happily and died in happiness only. But it was not actually true. He lived happily, but when he died, he could see only ugliness of his city. When he had a human heart, he never cried. That is another fact that he had. Of course, why would he be crying when he was the happy prince, when he was alive? He was not aware what tears were, because he had seen happiness only and never faced any sorrow. He was never sad when he was alive, when he was a human being. He had seen happiness only and never faced any sorrow. Now when he was dead, they had put him so high in the form of a statue on a pedestal that he could see the whole city and the ugliness of the city. He could see that there were so many people living in misery, lack of food, hunger, money, homelessness. Now when the statue's heart was made of lead, a metal, although it did not have any feelings, that also when it saw all the sadness, it became sad and wept. Yeah, these were the things that were happening with that statue, poor statue which was not able to move, but could see that what was happening in the city, the ugliness, the misery, the unhappiness, and so on. So many bad things he had noticed while he was erected as a statue. These were the narrations to the swallow. Swallow, because it asked the prince that why it was weeping. Let's move on. This is the statement from the paragraph. What? Is he not solid gold? Said the swallow to himself. He was too polite to make any personal remarks. Please have a look at your book. It's there in the paragraph. What? Is he not solid gold? Said the swallow to himself. He was too polite to make any personal remarks. Let's see the explanation. When the happy prince was telling his sad story, the swallow was thinking about something else in his mind. The bird wondered that the statue of the prince was not made of solid gold. It was surprised. It thought that from outside the statue was covered with gold, but as it said that the heart was made of lead and not of gold, it realized that it was hollow and was not made of solid gold. It saw that the statue was very sad and was crying, so he did not make any personal remarks. Yes, indeed it was a bird, so it didn't have that much of understanding. It did not comment anything about the statue because it was giving the value to the statue's feelings. Yes, the statue was actually narrating everything to the swallow. So when the statue was doing that, the bird, the swallow, was understanding everything. The feelings, first of all, the feelings of the prince, and the weeping that the swallow could see, which were actually falling and which were coming from the eyes of the prince, the statue. Far away, continued the statue in a low musical voice. Far away in a little street there is a poor house. One of the windows is open, and through it I can see a woman seated at a table. Her face is thin and worn, and she has coarse red hands, all pricked by the needle, for she is a seamstress. The statue continued its story. It spoke in a very musical voice that far away there was a house of a poor woman. The window of her house was open, and it could see through the window that she was sitting near the table. Her face was thin and she was tired. Her hands were rough and had become red because they had been pricked by the needle, as the woman was a seamstress. Seamstress is actually a woman tailor, the one who sew clothes. Okay? So those are known as seamstress, and they are normally a woman tailor. Okay? So here what the statue had seen is telling the swallow. Okay? And what did he see? He saw a poor woman. Okay? A poor woman who was there inside her house doing something. And what she was doing? She could see that through the window of that woman, that woman was sitting near to the table of her house, the house of that woman who was actually in her house there, the seamstress. Okay? The one who sew clothes, a woman tailor. Her face was thin and she was tired. Her hands were rough. You could easily figure that out whenever those people who are working hard, you will find out actually that their hands have become rough. So the prince, the statue was narrating to the swallow about the woman, the one who was actually inside her house, and that was visible to the statue, the prince. Her face had become red because they had been pricked by the needle. The woman was seamstress. As I told you, the woman was seamstress. Just because of that, like her face was completely red as she used to work hard a lot. Let's move on. The woman was embroidering flowers on a gown of the queen's maid who would walk along with the queen during the court ball. Okay, here that lady who is inside a house and who is actually extremely tired because of what she is doing. She was embroidering. You know the meaning of embroidering? Spelling is E-M-B-R-O-I-D-E-R-I-N-G, embroidering, embroiderer. And the meaning of that is to decorate the dress. Or you would say a design on dresses. Okay. So the seamstress was trying to embroider it with flowers on a gown of a queen's maid. That was actually the order given by the queen's maid, who was supposed to walk along with the queen during the court ball. That is a kind of a big party that usually happened in the palace. The statue said that the lady who was embroidering the gown had a little child who was not well. He ran a temperature and he was down with fever. The boy of the seamstress who was there inside the house, and this lady, the one who is actually embroidering the dress, is not able to look after his own child. He has to do his work and he has to look after his child at the same time. That is not possible, right? And those people who were there in the palace, the queen's maid was expecting this gown to be completed within few days. So they were expecting it. They were expecting the dress to be completed, embroidered by that seamstress. So here the statue is telling the swallow. And what the statue is telling to the swallow? The child is down with fever. So you have to help them. You have to go there and give them some oranges. His mother was very poor. She had no money. She could only give him water that also was river water and not a normal water. And that is why the little boy was crying. The little boy was crying as the mother of that little boy was not able to feed him properly or could provide him something to eat which could ease his pain from that fever. The fever was high, and the mother, the seamstress, had to take care of his son. Now just tell me, the woman had to complete her work, that gown which is supposed to be given to that who is walking along with the queen during the court ball. So this is what was happening with the statue. He was so sad to see all this happening. So he decided to actually ask the swallow to give something to them to eat, at least the child who was running temperature because of high fever. So that's it, kids. I shall meet you in the next class with the continuation of this lesson. I believe that you have understood from this lesson and actually the message that it tries to give us. Okay. So, let us see that what happened to that mother, the one who was actually feeling uncomfortable because of her work, because of that gown which was supposed to be completed by her, and with her son who was down with fever, and that lady who was not able to provide him food to eat. So, let us continue with this in my next class, the part 3 of the Happy Prince. Till then, hashtag stay safe, stay healthy.